You know who you are? Even Steven.
So I'm suddenly faced with the idea that the laptop that I use to record and edit my podcasts on will very soon no longer be available to me for a variety of reasons that I'm not really prepared to get into right now. But I have been forced with trying to come up with some ideas in regard to when that happens, how will I move forward in regard to podcasting? And frankly, that's the purpose behind this very special episode of Just Another Fanboy. Hello and welcome to a very special episode of Just Another Fanboy, the podcast that has some problems and finds that by talking about them out loud and talking through things, it can often come up with the solution itself, but just in case, might be looking for ideas from listeners. Wow, that was really terrible, wasn't it? Hey, I'm your host here in this very special episode of Blossom. My name is Steven. And yeah, so again, I don't really want to get into a lot of details, and there's reasons for that, but I'm having some issues with the laptop that I use to record these episodes and edit these episodes and release these episodes online. And it is a very real possibility that over the next month or so, I may no longer be able to use this laptop to do all of that. Now, there are ways to do most everything I need on my phone. Did I say that correctly? My mind is suddenly trying to reach back to remember exactly what I said. And for some reason, my mind is telling me, you left out a few words there, buddy. So maybe you should say that again. So yeah, I'll say it again. I can do most of what I need to do to get an episode recorded, edited, and released just using my phone. But it's going to be a huge pain in the ass to do all of that, or at least to do it and create the kind of episodes that I put out now. I do have an iPhone. It does have GarageBand on it. I'm not all that familiar with it, but I'm sure if forced to, I could figure it out. But it's not ideal. And to make matters worse, the tablet that I use to read all my comics on is, well, it wasn't the best tablet in the first place. And I'm starting to have a lot of issues when it comes to just loading comics on the Comixology app. And I have deleted the app and reinstalled it and done all that stuff. And it's still, I think it's more the tablet than it is I think it's the tablet more than it is the app. And so now I'm wondering how long it's going to be before the tablet just craps out on me and I'm not able to read comics anymore. So I've been working through in my head the idea of possibly doing some sort of donation drive to raise money to purchase an iPad. If I get the right kind of iPad, then I can use it to both record, edit, release episodes, and read comics on. It would be my all-in-one podcasting studio, ultimately. Again, I can read comics on my phone. That's how I started this show, was reading comics on my phone. And again, if I have to go back to that, I will go back to that. But it's like, once you have graduated from reading comics on your phone to reading comics on a tablet, it's just not the same. So again, I've been working through a lot of ideas in my head. And back in the day, there was, most of you have probably heard of him. There was an indie nerdcore rapper who went by the name of Adam Warrock. And I was and still am a big fan of his. He's no longer making music, but back during the 5 or 6 years that he was out there creating and selling music, once a year, he would do this thing called a donation drive for 1 week. And during the rest of the year, he would never ask for donations. And frankly, he didn't have any way for people to donate money. He would talk about how folks would often email him and say, "Hey, I want to donate some money to help you make your music," because the dude had quit his job and was doing music full time. Basically, he was trying to live off literally the sales of his music and money he made going out and touring clubs and whatnot. And he would tell folks, "I do a donation drive one week out of every year. That's when you can donate. I don't ask for it the rest of the year. And frankly, I don't accept donations the rest of the year." And I've often been very intrigued by that idea. And over the last few years, ever since I started podcasting again, I have often thought about how I might go about doing something like that. And even to the point of just closing down my Patreon and using that donation drive once a week or 1 week out of the year model and not accept any kind of donations for the rest of the year. And the reason why I like that idea is, honestly, I think that if you're only asking for money, asking folks to actually donate money to you, you're only doing it 1 week out of every year, there's a fairly good chance that you are going to have more money donated to you during that week than what you might get through something like a Patreon all year long. So there's a part of me that feels like that's a really good idea. But here's the thing. When he did his donation drive each year, he had a slew of things that he would give away to donors. He would put together like an EP, a collection of songs, 5 to 6, 7, 8 songs that, brand new songs that he would write and record and produce, just like any of the other songs he was doing. But he would release that only to folks who donated during that week. He would commission digital art from various comic book artists and maybe put together like some kind of digital wallpaper, like Adam Warrock wallpaper or something. I don't really remember the art part of it too well, but I feel like there were times that he was giving away digital art, along with the songs. I feel like he even had a short digital comic he gave away one year. I do remember though that one of the last years he did his donation drive, he had done a show, a concert in his house for just a bunch. It's like he threw a party and as part of that party, he did this concert that he put on video, and he released that video again only to the donors. So one of the reasons I think that this idea really worked for him was, he was way more popular than I am. He had way more fans than I have listeners. But also he was able to provide stuff like that. He would, here's some music that you can have, but only if you donate at least $1, right? During that week. That's all you had to do is donate $1 or more. And it sounded like he would fund most of his year through that donation drive. And so I've often thought of just doing that, canceling my Patreon, doing a donation drive 1 week out of every year. The problem is that I don't really have anything. I don't create anything other than podcast episodes that I could provide to folks during that week as an incentive to donate. I'm not an artist. I don't make music. I don't know a lot of musicians and artists that might be willing to donate that kind of stuff to me so then I could give it away during a donation drive. So, what would I do? What would I do if I was doing a donation drive once a week? And that also ties into what could I do if I put together some kind of donation drive or a fundraiser to help me come up with the funds necessary to get a good iPad. What could I provide to listeners in return? What could I provide to donors in return? And that's really one of the main reasons I'm doing this episode, because I'm soliciting ideas from all of you. I had originally started this. I was putting a multi-tweet thread together on Twitter, And after I got to about tweet number 9, because you can type all that stuff up in Twitter before you send it. But after I got to about tweet number 9, I thought, nobody's going to read all this. Maybe what I'll do is I'll make a post over on the forums, forum.justanotherfanboy.com. And so I took all that and I started putting it together in a more linear fashion that would make more sense as a whole to be read on the forums. But once I got really deep into writing that, I just kind of realized, it would be best just to do this as a podcast episode. I'm going to get more people listening to this episode than will read any tweet or any post I may put up on a forum. So that's what I'm doing. And kind of like I said there in the intro, I often find that I can work through issues and come up with my own solutions when I talk about the problems and ideas I have for these problems. When I talk about them out loud, my brain will often at that point start coming up with ideas. But again, I also want to solicit ideas from all y'all. So my email address will be in the show notes, justanotherfanboy@gmail.com. You can respond to the Twittery tweet that I put out for this episode. You can come to the forum.justanotherfanboy.com. There will be a post for this episode. You can provide your ideas there, but it's really important that I get ideas from folks, because if I don't try to do something, and I'm not going to come up with this money by myself, there's just no way. But if I don't do something, then there very well may come a time within the next few months that I am forced to only use my phone to create podcast episodes. And if it gets to that point, then I definitely won't be putting out a lot of episodes. And I may end up finding myself delaying, throwing big delays in there between episodes, because the idea, I've thought through, I've looked at how to use my phone to do episodes, but it really looks like it's going to be a lot of extra work, a lot more work than I'm doing now, when I have basically something that I can use a mouse and a keyboard on. That's two of the big things. And I don't want to get to that point. So I'm really looking for ideas, because I need this to be successful. So I'm going to give you some of the ideas I have, and you can either take the ideas that I have and improve upon them with any ideas of your own, or you can give me all new ideas. But let's start with the idea of a donation drive 1 week out of every year. It's something that, like I said, I've been thinking about doing that for the last 3 years. I just haven't quite fully figured out the best way to do it just yet, simply because can't talk. My opinion is that I don't really have anything to offer except for podcast episodes. So it's like, all right, well, I could do an episode a day for that week, 7 episodes in a row, 7 days a week. But at this point, I'm doing 3 to 4 episodes a week anyway. So that doesn't feel any more special than what folks are already giving. And really, when it comes to asking people to donate money, why would extra episodes entice them to do that? Even if they were, I'm going to do a special episode that only you as the donor can listen to, that it just doesn't sound like, I don't know that I could create something that would be enticing enough that folks would be like, oh, I've got to listen to those episodes and I don't want to miss out on them. So I'm going to donate some money. So I almost feel like there has to be some kind of stunt to go along with it. And when it comes to podcasting, the first thing that immediately pops into my mind is doing a 24-hour podcast. Now, I think most folks understand that when a podcast does one of these, a 24-hour podcast, they're not literally podcasting nonstop for 24 hours and releasing one episode that is 24 hours long. I know that when Around Comics did it back in the day, they spent that entire 24 hours in the Dark Tower comic book store that they always recorded from. And they would record for 45 minutes. And then they would take a 15-minute break between episodes. that would allow them time to basically take the episode that they just recorded and do even a slight bit of editing, which ultimately is just adding a song to the beginning and a song to the end and then releasing it. So folks basically were getting 24 episodes in a row, one every hour, and they were allowing themselves a 15-minute break between episodes. They were young fellers back then. That was like 15 years ago, maybe. And they're about my age. So, the idea of staying up for 24 hours in a row at my age feels like kind of a chore. At the same time, I think about what some of those episodes may sound like after like just even the 5th hour, not, much less the 10th hour or the 15th hour or the 20th hour, when I'm just super loopy. Those might be some freaking fun episodes. And the idea of that may be enough to make people feel it would be worth to throw some donations my way during that week. I would, though, because I've thought about the idea of a 24-hour podcast. I would do it a bit differently. First of all, one thing that I have to keep in mind is that I live in a house with a wife and 2 kids who probably would not like the idea of me podcasting for 24 hours. That doesn't just affect me. It kind of uproots their life to a certain extent for 24 hours. Not that I would require them to remain silent during those 24 hours. It would just mean that if I do something like that, they're just going to end up being part of the podcast. You're going to hear them walking by and getting food in the kitchen and watching TV and talking to each other in the other room and maybe even stepping over to the mic and saying a few things and talking to me and asking me questions and junk like that. It's going to be it's not going to be the types of episodes you normally get from me. They're going to be very chaotic. I mean, I could come up with ideas. I'm going to come up with 24 subjects. I'm going to do 24 episodes and, we'll see if I can stick to those subjects, right? That's something I have to think about. If I didn't want to interrupt my family's lives in any way, then I'd have to go somewhere else that has an internet connection where I could be for 24 hours and do this. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to be alone for 24 hours doing this. So it's something that if I wanted to go that route, it would really have to be something that I'd need to think about. And I would have to get their buy-in at the same time. And there's no guarantee that I would get their buy-in. But if I was to do it, I've been thinking about how that would work for me. I don't think I could do 45 minutes with a 15-minute break for 24 hours straight. I don't think I could do that. I think with me, the best option for me would be from the moment that 24-hour period started, I would start recording. And however long it took me to make, an episode, once I was done, I would then give myself a half-hour break. During that break, that would allow me to slap something together and get the episode up and also use the restroom, get something to eat, spend 5 or 10 minutes with family, between episodes. That would mean, though, I would either do 24 30-minute episodes or just during that 24-hour period. So, for example, if the first episode took me an hour and a half, then I took 30 minutes off. Then for the first 2 hours, you're just getting one episode. So it wouldn't be 24 episodes, but it would be podcast episodes that you would be getting throughout that 24-hour period. And then just to kind of prove to people that I was doing this and that I didn't just, record 24 episodes beforehand and stayed up just enough to release them throughout the 24-hour period, I'd try and live stream the whole thing. Not one continuous live stream. I don't know that YouTube would allow me to do that unless I gave them money. And again, if I had money, I wouldn't be doing this. So it'd have to be, if I did 24 episodes, there would be 24 different live streams on the YouTube channel. So anyway, it's something I'm thinking about. I feel like it's something I need to do. And I don't want to just say, hey, folks, I need to raise this money for this reason. Give me money, without trying to give something back in return. So justanotherfanboy@gmail.com, Stephen or else over on Twitter, forum.justanotherfanboy.com. Let me know. Listen to this episode and let me know. Give me your ideas. What could I do that would entice you? What could I do that might entice other people? Is the idea of doing something like this for 1 week out of every year and then shutting down the Patreon, do you feel that that's a good idea? Would you be, if, for example, if you're a listener, but you don't, you're not a part of the Patreon, would the idea of, hey, I'm going to ask for donations once a year, would you feel more inclined to donate if you only had to do it once a year? These are the things I need to know. This is the advice I need. This is, I'm trying to collect some information and collect some ideas before I make the next step, because this is not something I want to rush into. I mean, it needs to get done fairly quick because I feel like I have a small window of time before my tablet craps out or I'm no longer able to use this laptop anymore. And I'm not really sure how to end this. Let me know your ideas. Thank you for listening to this very special episode of Just Another Fanboy. Be nice to each other.
Bye-bye, Daddy.
Bye-bye, Daddy.
Good job.